Did you know there's a 3-step protocol that can eliminate 75% of your visceral fat in 90 days without doing a minute of cardio? Sounds too good to be true? Well, stick with me because I'm going to break down the exact nutrition, training, and recovery protocols and show you why this is the fastest system if you want to lose visceral fat. It's the same protocol we used to help Carl drop 53% of his visceral fat. It's the same one we used to help Jay drop 64% of his visceral fat. And it's the same system we used to help Mike drop 75% of his visceral fat in 90 days. And what's crazy is that Mike was making the same mistake that 99% of people make, especially when they want to drop this dangerous type of fat off their body. And I'll get to that in step 2. Now, to give you some context, I used to be the overweight kid who was terrified to take his shirt off at the pool. And I was so embarrassed and ashamed about my body that I obsessed about everything fat loss and getting lean. And fast forward 25 years later, I've coached thousands of people from stay-at-home moms to billionaires to even celebrities. And there's one type of fat that keeps on showing up as the real enemy, and that's visceral fat. So what is visceral fat? Visceral fat is the most dangerous type of fat on your body because it wraps around your organs. And the reason why it's so dangerous is because it's metabolically active. It releases inflammatory substances called cytokines directly into your bloodstream. Now, the problem with these cytokines is that they contribute to low-grade chronic inflammation. And this is the key driver for metabolic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and certain types of cancers. And if you have way too much visceral fat, it can make you dumber. It reduces the amount of blood flow to the brain and causes shrinkage in the areas of the brain known for emotional control and decision making. And the most unique thing about this specific fat is that you can actually lose weight and not lose visceral fat. It's kind of crazy. I remember working with my client Mike, who was having exceptionally high levels of visceral fat. And like everyone else, he wanted to drop the weight in a flexible way. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to be able to drink alcohol. And he thought that, hey, if I just cut calories, then my visceral fat will go away. And even though he was in calorie deficit, we dropped 11 pounds. He got his DEXA back and he was pissed because his visceral fat stayed the same. And I told him from the beginning, if you want this type of fat removed, it's not just about cutting calories and eating less. You have to change the quality of your nutrition, training, and sleep. And thankfully, he got the message. And when he did the 3 steps in the protocol I'm about to share below, he dropped 75% of his visceral fat in 90 days flat. Now, the protocol that I'm referring to is called the VAT removal protocol, and VAT just means visceral adipose tissue. So let's start with the most important part, which is going to be the diet. The eating approach that we employ with our clients is called an optimized Mediterranean diet. And the great thing is, it's backed by science. This type of diet has been shown to be the most effective diet to remove visceral fat, even if you don't lose any weight. Now, the reason why this particular diet works so well is because of 2 things that we do. So number 1 is going to be the polyphenol intake. So polyphenols are plant compounds that are found in dark berries, green tea, nuts, and also dark leafy greens. And in the study that I showed earlier, it triggered the production of hippuric acid and also urolithin A. And these are just compounds that tell your gut to get their shit together and remove visceral fat. So here's what we actually implemented in Mike's diet. So the very first one is going to be the elimination of alcohol. So Mike was a 1 to 2 glasses of wine a day kind of guy, and also a little bit more on the weekends. And if there's anything you know about alcohol, is the fact that it increases inflammation, it increases appetite. Your body prioritizes burning it off first before anything else. So I told Mike, if you want to eliminate your visceral fat, you have to give your gut and your body a fighting chance and create the most optimal environment. It just doesn't mean that you're going to give up alcohol forever. It just means for the short term, we're going to have to eliminate it. Now, the other thing that we had to do was limit processed foods. So we wanted to get rid of any packaged foods, any fast foods, and anything that essentially can be labeled as a hyper-processed food from this diet. And what we're starting to find with processed foods, emulsifiers, and the added sugars is that they all have a negative impact on the gut. Now, it's not all about elimination when it comes to the diet. So with this optimized Mediterranean diet, we wanted to increase protein intake. And we made sure that Mike was getting his protein from mainly food sources. Things like white fish, fatty fish, chicken, beef. And we made sure he was getting 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And I find that when clients increase the amount of protein, especially when on a deficit, it gives them a fighting chance to not only keep the muscle, but also help them build a little bit. And next, we made sure that he indexed heavily on dark berries like blueberries, blackberries, and even raspberries. We basically wanted him to take at least like 2 cups a day. And he would do this either in his breakfast or as a snack if he was feeling peckish. Now, we did try adding green tea to Mike's program because that is also a net positive for removing visceral fat, but He hated it, so we removed it. But green tea is awesome because it contains a high amount of catechins, which have been shown to have a positive effect at removing visceral fat. Next, we had Mike volumize his food with polyphenol-rich leafy greens. We're talking spinach, kale, arugula, things of that nature. And I mentioned this in the previous video where I talked about how I got my abs back, where we actually had Mike use a specific breakfast every single morning, or around 80% of the mornings. And it was what I call lean body glop. And it's 250 grams of low-fat Greek yogurt with 100 grams of frozen berries, and also 1 to 2 scoops of whey protein powder. And we also added a teaspoon of psyllium husk to help with his gut and also to increase the fiber intake. Now, the last part of his diet was to automate his hunger. And we use the system that I call the chrono eating protocol. So something you have to understand is that when you put your meals on a schedule, you give yourself a fighting chance at automating when you feel hungry. If you eat at random times, your hunger will show up at random times. I like to tell my clients that you should train your hunger like a dog. And if you do have a dog, you know that if you start shaking the food bowl at around 1 p.m. every single day, at 1 p.m., the dog's gonna perk up and be like, yo, where's my food? And the same thing goes with humans. So the chrono eating protocol is stupidly simple. So we start at the end and we make sure that 3 to 5 hours before he goes to sleep, we make sure that we are having our final meal. And then we go to the beginning. Around 1 to 2 hours upon waking, basically feed him his lean body glop. And in between that, we have a middle meal. And voila, just like that, you combine that with the right foods and you have a system that automates your hunger. Now, to give you more context, like Mike wasn't morbidly obese. He had over 30 pounds to lose. And after running this protocol on so many people and seeing the DEXA scans, it is the combination of food quality, the timing, the protein, all of it combined helps you not only lose the visceral fat, but also gives you a fighting chance at gaining muscle, which can increase your metabolic rate. And that's exactly what happened with Mike. He dropped 31 pounds off his body, but he also gained 3 pounds of lean mass, which increased his basal metabolic rate. But you have to combine that with the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is step 2, the training and movement protocols. Now, the thing about Mike was he was doing a ton of cardio. He was doing hours on the treadmill, the bike, Barry's boot camp, you name it. He did this for years and he still saw his visceral fat increase. And here's the thing no one tells you. If you want to lose visceral fat, more cardio is not the answer. And I know that sounds backwards because everyone thinks that more cardio equals more fat loss. Wrong. Study after study shows that when it comes to specifically reducing visceral fat, weight training wins every single time. It's not even close. And the simple reason why is because weight training builds and helps you keep your muscle. And muscle is also metabolically active tissue. You have more muscle, it means a higher resting metabolism. And a higher metabolism means that your body actually burns a little bit more fat, including visceral fat, 24/7. And also, excessive cardio creates the stress hormone called cortisol. And guess where your body likes to store excessive amounts of cortisol? In your belly. So what's the training program that works? Well, low volume, high intensity, and progressive overload. Low volume means we're doing around 2 sets per exercise, 6 to 10 reps per set. High intensity means that we're taking our reps as close to failure as possible, anywhere between 0 to 2 reps within failure. It also means that we're hitting up the major muscle groups at least 2 times per week. And progressive overload means that every single time we're going to the gym, we're either adding more weight or we're adding more reps. And especially after the age of 40, when you are accumulating all of this stress from life and from everywhere else, you don't really respond to the same type of volume. And your bottleneck is not necessarily effort or time, it's recovery. I'm going to say that as you get older, your body can't respond to the same type of volume that you did in your 20s, but it does respond beautifully to intelligent training. So Mike went from hours of cardio to 3 focused lifting sessions a week. He was spending half the time in the gym and getting way better results. Also, instead of cardio, we did something that I call mindless movement. And this is the part that surprises a lot of people. Now, if you're on the internet, you're going to hear so many things about zone 2 cardio and sprinting and vigorous exercise. But let me tell you, the best type of cardio is the cardio you don't realize that you're doing. And mindless movement isn't movement that is formal exercise. It's walking meetings. It's taking the stairs. It is finding ways in which to move your body that is already incorporated into what you're already doing. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to accumulate 7,000 to 10,000 steps per day without thinking about it. And yes, this can account for maybe like 100 more calories burned per day, but unlike cardio, it doesn't spike your hunger or increase your stress. And for visceral fat specifically, which responds to stress hormones, this low-level movement is ideal. And for Mike, this was a game changer. He was taking his meetings while walking outside. He was even doing work from a stationary bike. He even got a standing desk and an under-the-desk treadmill. And low-key, I told him, I was like, use Whisperflow, which is this talk-to-text app, and answer emails while you're doing it. Now, it may seem crazy to say, but the biggest change we made with Mike had nothing to do with diet and exercise, had everything to do with his recovery protocol. And I'm talking about step 3, sleep. Now, this is the one that Mike resisted the longest because he was one of those, I'll sleep when I'm dead type of guys. And you know what? He would have proved himself right, because if there's anything you know about chronic sleep deprivation is that it leads to an earlier death. And it also leads to horrible performance. Dude was getting like 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night.
I haven't slept in 8 days!
And you already know this, like sleep deprivation, cortisol spikes, insulin sensitivity goes out the window, your testosterone decreases, ghrelin, your hunger hormone, increases, leptin, your satiety hormone, decreases. This means that you're hungrier and also less satisfied from your meals. And literally, it just makes you dumber and fatter. Even once they found that people who were sleeping 5.5 hours versus people who were sleeping 8.5 hours, even while eating the same calories, lost 55% less fat. So what does an optimized sleep routine? Well, I did talk about it in this video over here about the nighttime routine. Now, let's get into it quickly. Number 1, consistent bedtimes. Go to sleep and wake up at the same times. I've done this so many times that my body is its own alarm clock now. Second, at least 30 to 60 minutes, you need a wind down routine. Stop looking at emails, stop looking at Slack, stop doing things that are increasing your ability to think. Also, you want to make sure that you're dimming the lights. Something that was crazy was like he was keeping the lights on like super bright at night. And I'm just like, what the f are you doing? And something you should know is that we have these little things in our bodies called Zeitbergers. They're kind of like signals that just basically say, hey, you should be awake, you should go to sleep. And light is one of the biggest signals. So if you have bright light in your house and it's just like shining in your eyes, guess what's happening? You are just telling yourself to stay awake. Next, we wanted to make sure that we prepped his cave, aka his bedroom, to be conducive to sleep. So that's going to be a cool room, anywhere between 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on who's in that room. Because if you're sleeping with someone else, there's always going to be one person that runs hot. There's always going to be one person that runs cold. Basically, that is what happens in every single relationship. And last, you don't want to be drinking alcohol, but we talked about that already. You know, it messes with your sleep. Just don't do it. Now with Mike, he was sleeping like 5 to 6 hours a night. Crazy. And all we did was a little test. Hey, we're going to fix your sleep routine, and also we're going to get you at least 6 to 7 hours a night. And it was hard, but once he did that, everything clicked. His appetite was controlled. He found he had more energy, less stress. He was feeling great. And I shit you not, like sleep is the lead domino where all good things come from. You fix that, you fix a lot of things in life. Now, the last thing that you need is time. From my experience, it takes around 90 days to make significant reductions in visceral fat. And 90 days may seem like a lot, but that's actually not a lot of time. That's like a quarter of a year. Now, something that happened with Mike when he went on this protocol is that he found that he was full to the point of not even wanting to finish the food on his plate. I remember getting text from him and he was eating. He's like, hey, I'm feeling pretty full. Do I have to finish my plate? And I'm like, no, you don't. And this is wild coming from a guy who was just stuffing his face 12 hours a day full of like snacks and all sorts of other shit. So the main thing you should take from this is that if you want to lose your visceral fat, you have to focus on systems. And once you do this, you will eventually see your visceral fat and also your belly disappear. Now, if you want the complete system, I put together a free guide of the visceral fat removal protocol. Drop a comment below with the word lean and I'll send it to you. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.